All right, so today we are taking a deep dive into some pretty intense Zen philosophy.
Intense is one word for it.
I guess that's one way to put it, yeah. We're looking at this book. It's called One Seed Makes the Whole Earth Green.
Oh, I know this one.
Yeah, and it's not your typical light reading. It's a collection of talks from this, well, let's just say, very outspoken figure in the world of Zen.
Outspoken. He was really controversial.
Yeah, and he really doesn't hold back. He tackles all these huge topics like the true meaning of insult, the connection between religion and poverty, really makes you think.
I can see why you wanted to bring in an expert. There's a lot to unpack here.
Well, I definitely need some help wrapping my head around some of this stuff, so that's why you're here.
Happy to be here.
So let's just jump right in, shall we? There's this wild story in the book about a protest against the author where people are parading his effigy around on a donkey.
Oh, yeah, the donkey bodhisattva incident.
That's the one. So most people would be pretty upset about that whole situation, right? But this author, he just laughs it off and even calls the donkey a bodhisattva, like it's some kind of holy being.
It's a classic example of how Zen masters use humor and unconventional thinking to teach profound lessons.
Okay, so I get the humor part, but what's the deeper meaning here? Is he seriously saying that donkey is on the path to enlightenment?
Well, not exactly. It's more about the author's reaction, or rather his lack of reaction. He chose not to be offended by the insult. In Zen philosophy, that's a sign of true inner strength.
So he's basically saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Kind of, but it goes deeper than that. It's about recognizing that true peace of mind can't be shaken by external events.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
Think of it like this. You've got this inner space that's totally calm and undisturbed. Even if the outside world is going crazy, people are yelling, things are falling apart, that inner space remains untouched.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like creating a sanctuary within yourself, a place where nothing can disturb your peace.
Exactly. And the author was demonstrating that by not letting the protest get to him, he didn't accept the insult, so it had no power over him.
That's a pretty amazing way to deal with negativity, Just let it bounce right off you.
And that's a central theme in a lot of Eastern philosophies. It's about finding that inner peace, that unshakable center, no matter what life throws at you.
So it's not about ignoring the outside world, it's about not letting it control your inner state.
Right. You can still engage with the world, but you do it from a place of inner stability and clarity.
I like that. So this author, he doesn't just talk about insults and donkeys, he also gets into some really controversial territory, like religion and poverty.
Oh yeah, he definitely doesn't shy away from tough topics.
He straight up says that religions often perpetuate poverty. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is, and it's something that a lot of people might find uncomfortable to hear.
Especially coming from someone who's seen as a spiritual leader.
Right, but that's what makes him so compelling. He's willing to challenge the status quo and make people think critically about their beliefs.
So what's his argument here? How does he say that religions actually contribute to poverty?
He brings up examples from all these different religious traditions, Christianity, Hinduism, Jainism, Islam, and he argues that instead of tackling the root causes of poverty, many religions just offer promises of a better afterlife.
So it's like, just be patient, suffer now, and you'll be rewarded in the next life.
Exactly. And while that might be comforting to some, it doesn't really address the systemic issues that keep people trapped in poverty.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Yeah.
It might make you feel a little better temporarily, but it's not going to fix the problem.
He also criticizes religious leaders for not speaking out against things like slavery and oppression. He points out that throughout history, many religious institutions have actually benefited from these systems of exploitation.
It makes you wonder, why didn't they use their influence to create real change?
It's a complex issue, and there are a lot of factors at play.
Right, it's not a simple black and white situation. But it definitely raises questions about the role of religious institutions in society and whether they're truly serving the needs of the people.
And he even uses Gautama Buddha as an example, pointing out that even he, the founder of Buddhism, relied on the support of wealthy patrons to travel and teach.
So even someone like Buddha, who was all about simplicity and detachment, still needed money to function in the world.
It highlights the fact that even spiritual movements need resources to survive, and those resources often come from people with wealth and power.
And then there's the whole idea of karma and past life sins, which some religions use to explain why some people are born into poverty.
Right, and he argues that this kind of thinking can actually make things worse by shifting the blame away from systemic issues and personal responsibility.
So instead of trying to change the systems that create poverty, people are told it's their own fault for something they did in a past life.
It's almost like saying, well, you're poor because you deserve to be. Not exactly a recipe for social change, is it?
No, it's not. It's more like a way to keep people stuck in their current situation.
And he brings up bonded laborers who inherit their debts, comparing it to historical slavery.
It's like history repeating itself. These cycles of poverty and exploitation that continue generation after generation.
And his point is that religions often don't do enough to break these cycles.
They might offer charity or comfort, but they don't necessarily challenge the underlying structures that create these problems.
He even goes into the financial teachings of different religions, like how Islam forbids charging interest.
Right, and he argues that teachings like this can actually hinder economic growth, especially in a globalized world that runs on interest-based financial systems.
He's not saying that these teachings are wrong, but that they need to be reinterpreted in light of modern economic realities.
So it's not about throwing out tradition, it's about adapting it to the current context.
Exactly. And he uses India as an example with its high poverty rates, and he makes this pretty grim prediction.
What's that?
He thinks that by the end of the century, half of India's population could die from starvation due to overpopulation and limited resources.
Wow, that's a scary thought.
It is, and he doesn't shy away from the harsh realities. His point is that poverty has devastating consequences.
And that religious teachings that romanticize poverty might actually be making the problem worse.
Right. It's about finding a balance between spiritual values and practical solutions.
So it's not about choosing one or the other. It's about integrating them in a way that actually uplifts people and creates a more just and equitable world.
Exactly. It's about using our spiritual understanding to create positive change in the real world.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here, from personal insults to the critique of religious institutions. Where do we go from here?
Well, the author doesn't just tear things down. He also offers insights into a more authentic path to spiritual understanding. But I think we'll save that for the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. Let's take a break and come back to explore those insights.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about how this author really digs into some controversial stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back.
Not one bit. But I'm curious. He critiques a lot. But what does he offer as an alternative? Like, how do we actually achieve that inner peace, that deeper understanding?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of direct experience, not just intellectual knowledge.
So it's not enough to just read about Zen. You have to actually practice it.
Right. He tells this great story about Master Rinzai, a famous Zen master, and a question about the true eye of compassion. It's a bit of a head-scratcher, but it really gets to the heart of Zen.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear it.
So Rinzai's visiting this governor who offers him the seat of honor, showing respect. Another Zen master, this guy named Mayu, comes up and says, "The great compassionate one has 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes," which is the true eye.
Whoa, that's deep.
Right. And Rinzai, instead of giving some long-winded answer, he just throws the question right back at Mayu.
What? Why would he do that? He was calling Mayu out for relying on book smarts instead of real understanding. It's like saying, you might know the scriptures, but do you really get what compassion means?
So it's not about having all the answers. It's about actually embodying that compassion.
Exactly. Zen is about direct experience, not just intellectual knowledge. It's about moving beyond words and concepts to directly grasp reality.
So it's like the difference between reading about how to bake a cake and actually getting your hands dirty and tasting it.
Perfect analogy. You can read all the books in the world about baking, but until you actually get in the kitchen and try it yourself, you'll never truly understand it.
And I bet you make some pretty amazing cakes.
I try my best. But this story also shows the tension that often exists between scholars and those who've experienced truth firsthand.
I can see that. Like, you can be a walking encyclopedia of spiritual knowledge, but still miss the essence of what it truly means to be compassionate.
Right. You can't just think your way to enlightenment. You have to live it, breathe it, experience it.
It's about that gut feeling, that deep inner knowing that goes beyond just the head.
Exactly. It's about integrating that knowledge into your very being.
Speaking of challenging our usual ways of thinking, let's talk about Zen koans. Those riddles or stories designed to make you think outside the box.
Oh, yeah, those are fun.
Fun. They make my brain hurt. But I guess that's the point, right? To kind of shake us out of our complacency.
They're meant to break through your logical mind and lead you to a more intuitive understanding of reality.
The author shares this classic one about a goose trapped in a bottle. A man puts a gosling in a bottle, and it grows too big to get out. The question is, how do you get the goose out without breaking the bottle or harming the goose?
Ah, yes, that's a good one.
It's a real brain twister.
And there's no logical solution, that's the whole point. Zen koans aren't meant to be solved with your intellect.
So how are you supposed to solve them?
By letting go of the need to solve them. It's about surrendering to the absurdity, to the paradox, and allowing your mind to open up to new possibilities.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. Like a mental puzzle, but instead of finding the right pieces, you're kind of dissolving the puzzle itself.
Precisely. You're transcending the limits of your rational mind and accessing a deeper level of awareness.
That's where the real magic happens, right?
You could say that. It's about moving from thinking to being, from the head to the heart.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Now, there's another key concept that comes up a lot in this book. Witnessing.
Yes, witnessing is about observing your thoughts, emotions, and sensations without judging them or getting attached to them.
So it's like taking a step back from the movie of your life and becoming the observer.
Exactly. You're not caught up in the drama, you're just watching it unfold. And in that watching, you start to realize that you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you're something much bigger than that.
Wow, that's profound. It's like realizing that you are the screen on which the movie is playing, not the characters in the movie.
That's a great way to put it. And the author uses this idea of physical, mental, and astral bodies to explain this concept of witnessing.
Okay, the astral body, that's the one that always gets me. What exactly is that?
Well, it's often described as a subtle body of light that exists beyond your physical body. It's kind of like a vehicle for consciousness, carrying it from one lifetime to the next.
So when you die, your physical body and mind are left behind, but your astral body, which carries your memories and experiences, travels with you.
That's the idea. It's the part of you that transcends death and rebirth, the eternal essence of who you are.
It makes you think about the nature of identity, like who we really are beyond our physical form.
And the author even connects this to the idea of merging with the whole, with universal consciousness.
So it's like your individual drop of water dissolving back into the ocean.
Beautiful image. It's about letting go of the illusion of separation and realizing your interconnectedness with all that is.
Okay, I think I need a moment to process all of that.
Take your time. These are big ideas.
They really are.
Cool.
But I'm ready for more. Let's keep going.
I know he also talks about the masks we wear, how we conform to societal expectations. Right, he's critical of how people change their behavior to fit in, putting on a show for others while hiding their true selves.
It's like we're all actors on a stage, playing different parts depending on the audience.
He argues that personality is largely a social construct, a set of roles and behaviors we adopt to navigate the world.
It makes sense. Like, I act differently around my boss than I do with my friends, but is that really me? Who's the real me under all these masks?
That's the question he wants us to ask ourselves. He encourages us to peel back those layers and discover the authentic self that lies beneath.
It's like an archaeological dig, but instead of uncovering ancient artifacts, we're excavating our own true nature.
I like that. And he even goes so far as to call the city where he's giving these talks an uncultured city.
Oh yeah, he really ruffled some feathers with that one.
He was deliberately provocative, pushing people's buttons to make them think critically about their own assumptions and biases.
And I remember all those editorials calling him lecherous and a threat to society.
He uses those accusations to expose what he sees as hypocrisy within various religions, pointing out that they're not as pure and innocent as they might seem.
He talks about the erotic sculptures in Hindu temples, the sexually explicit passages in the Bible, and even the controversial behavior of figures like Mahatma Gandhi.
He's not condoning these things, but he's saying, hey, let's not pretend that our own traditions are perfect while judging others.
It's like he's holding up a mirror to society, showing us the dark underbelly of our own beliefs and behaviors.
And challenging us to confront the uncomfortable truths about ourselves.
Before we move on, there's this one story that really stuck with me, the one about the blind man who denied the existence of light.
Ah, yes. That's a classic example of the limitations of intellectual understanding.
He'd never seen light, so he couldn't believe in it. But it's more than just a story about a blind man, right? It's a metaphor for something deeper.
Absolutely. The author links this to the concept of the third eye in Eastern philosophy.
That's the eye of intuition and inner knowing, right?
Yeah.
The one that sees beyond the physical realm.
Exactly. He suggests that we're all, in a sense, blind if we only rely on our external senses and logic. We need to cultivate this inner vision to truly see.
So even if we have all the knowledge in the world, if we haven't developed that inner awareness, we're still missing something essential.
He's calling for a shift in perspective, a move from a purely intellectual understanding to a more holistic, experiential one.
It's about awakening to a reality that's beyond our five senses, beyond the limits of our rational mind.
And that's where true enlightenment lies, in that direct experience of your own being, of the interconnectedness of all things.
Wow, what an incredible journey we've been on so far.
And we're not done yet. There's still so much more to explore. Are you ready to continue our deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's keep going. So we've been exploring some really deep concepts, from the true meaning of compassion to the mysteries of the astral body.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I know there's one more area I wanted to touch on: his thoughts on psychology.
Oh, yeah, he has some interesting and maybe controversial views on that.
He basically says that Western psychology doesn't go deep enough, that it misses the spiritual dimension of human experience.
Right, he feels that it's too focused on the mind and behavior and that it neglects the soul.
It's like trying to understand a tree by only looking at its leaves and branches, but ignoring its roots.
Exactly. He points out the irony that psychology didn't actually originate in the East, despite the fact that Eastern traditions have always emphasized inner exploration and spiritual growth.
It's almost as if the East already understood that true understanding lies beyond the mind, so they didn't need to spend centuries analyzing it.
It's like they skipped a step, going straight to the heart of the matter.
He even mentions a prominent American psychoanalyst who, after a lifetime of studying the mind, concluded that psychology alone isn't enough.
It's like he hit a wall, realizing that there's a whole other realm of experience that psychology can't fully explain.
And that realm is the realm of the spirit, of the soul, of that which connects us to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And it's a realm that Eastern traditions have been exploring for millennia.
So maybe Western psychology is starting to catch up with what the East has known all along.
It's a sign that we're expanding our understanding of what it means to be human, recognizing that there's more to us than just our thoughts and behaviors.
There's a depth, a mystery, a spiritual core that we're just beginning to tap into.
And practices like meditation are essential for accessing that core.
He talks about how, in a Zen context, meditation isn't about concentrating on an object or trying to empty your mind, but about simply being present, being aware.
It's about cultivating that pure awareness, that silent space where thoughts come and go without judgment.
It's like watching clouds drift by in the sky. You don't try to hold on to them, you just observe them.
And in that observing, you start to detach from your thoughts, to realize that you're not your thoughts, that you're something much vaster.
It's like realizing that the sky is always there, even when the clouds obscure it.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that meditation is the key to unlocking that realization, to achieving enlightenment.
He even tells this funny story about a man who asks if you can reach enlightenment without practicing Zen.
Oh, yes. And his response is classic. He says something like, "The golden cock heralds the dawn. The pitch barrel sends out a dark radiance."
What's that supposed to mean?
He's basically saying that meditation is the key that unlocks enlightenment. It's the path from darkness to light, from ignorance to wisdom.
Without that inner journey, without that direct experience of your own being, you're left groping in the dark.
You're relying on beliefs and concepts, which are ultimately just shadows of the real thing.
So it all comes back to experience, to that direct encounter with reality that goes beyond words and ideas.
That's the heart of Zen, a direct, unmediated experience of what is.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. This whole deep dive has been a journey into the heart of Zen, exploring its paradoxes, its challenges, and its profound insights.
It's a journey that's both challenging and liberating, pushing us to question our assumptions, confront our fears, and discover our true selves.
And it all starts with that willingness to look inward, to cultivate that inner stillness, to embrace the unknown.
To dive deep into the vast ocean of our own being and discover the treasures that lie hidden within.
Well said. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us on this incredible journey.
It's been my pleasure. May your journey continue to be filled with laughter, insight, and the transformative power of awakening.
And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. May this exploration inspire you to look inward, to question, to seek, and to discover the boundless possibilities within you.